Joachim Peiper. Empty tanks, lost war. The King Tiger was the most feared tank in history, yet it died just 4 miles from victory. Discover the mechanical flaw that crushed Hitler's final gamble. Subscribe for more history.
The frozen silence of the Ardennes exploded into fire. 1,600 German guns tore the morning sky apart. American soldiers watched the darkness turn to liquid flame. They were young clerks and green replacements in foxholes. They knew the weight of fuel moving through depots. They did not know how to fight German steel. The generals called this sector a quiet rest area. Intelligence officers said the Reich was finished by Christmas. The artillery barrage lasted 90 minutes of pure terror. When it stopped, a deeper roar shook the earth. It was the grinding sound of heavy German tracks. Hitler had gathered his last great gamble in secret. 28 divisions moved under the cover of the clouds. Their objective was the massive port city of Antwerp. Seizing Antwerp would split the Allied armies in two. The offensive was codenamed Watch on the Rhine for secrecy. The Americans would call it the Battle of the Bulge. The spearhead was a battle group of elite panzers. Its commander was a ruthless colonel named Joachim Peiper. He was the Aryan ideal with a heart of ice. His men called him Blowtorch for his brutal methods. He led nearly 5,000 men and 100+ tanks. His column stretched 15 miles along the narrow roads. At the front were 30 massive Tiger II tanks. The Tiger II was the most powerful armored vehicle. It weighed 70 tons and carried an 88 cannon. American tankers feared the King Tiger above all else. But the Tiger had a fatal, thirsty engine weakness. It burned 2 gallons of fuel for every mile. Off-road, it could drain its tanks in 2 hours. Peiper knew he needed to capture American fuel depots. German logistics could not keep up with the advance. The tanks carried only enough for 90 miles total. The Meuse River was over 100 miles away. Traffic jams began before the first shot was fired. The narrow forest roads could not hold the weight. A railroad overpass sagged under the first heavy tank. Engineers needed hours to reinforce the weak wooden span. Peiper was already falling behind his strict timetable. Every minute of idling engines burned his precious lifeblood. He pushed his column through the night with headlights. By dawn, they reached the village of Honsfeld. American troops were caught sleeping in their warm billets. Peiper did not stop to process the many prisoners. Speed was the only thing that could ensure victory. He reached a small depot in the town of Bulge. 50,000 gallons were seized at the gunpoint. It was a drop in the ocean of need. The major depots lay further west near Stavelot. Those held 3 million gallons of Allied gasoline. That fuel was the key to reaching the Meuse. Without it, the Tiger tanks would become steel coffins. The column reached a crossroad south of Malmedy. American technicians were caught in the open snowy fields. 150 men surrendered to the SS. What followed would horrify the world for decades. SS soldiers opened fire on the unarmed American prisoners. They walked among the fallen, shooting survivors in heads. 84 men died in the cold Belgian mud. Word of the massacre spread like wildfire through lines. American resolve hardened into a sharp diamond edge. The killing at Malmedy would be repaid in blood. Peiper pushed toward Stavelot as the sun began setting. The First Army fuel depot sat just to the north. 3 million gallons of gasoline waited in the forest. Capture meant victory, loss meant the end of hope. Lieutenant Colonel David Pergrin stood in Peiper's way. He was a combat engineer who built river bridges. His men were not trained to fight heavy tanks. But they knew exactly how to destroy the world. Pergrin ordered his squads to mine every narrow road. They wired the ancient stone bridges with heavy TNT. Every hour of delay saved the fuel for later. At Stavelot, the defense was a handful of men. To the north, Belgian guards protected the gasoline stacks. Peiper halted for the night to rest his crew. It was a reasonable choice that proved a disaster. Through the dark, American trucks moved the fuel north. Thousands of cans were saved by the working men. At dawn, the German panzers rolled into Stavelot. They were looking for the fuel they thought existed. Major Paul Solis saw the tanks coming for him. He ordered his men to pour gasoline in dips. They set the road on fire, creating 30-foot flames. 100,000 gallons burned in a black pillar. The fire convinced the Germans the depot was gone. Peiper did not know millions of gallons remained nearby. He was within 4 miles of a total victory. The fuel he needed was practically under his nose. He turned his column away from the hidden prize. He pushed west toward the bridges at Trois-Ponts. Captain Sam Schuber waited with his demolition cord. He watched the lead tanks commit to the crossing. The engineers touched off the charges with a roar. The bridge collapsed into the river in a cloud. Peiper slammed his fist against his cold tank. He cursed the damned engineers who blocked his path. He turned north, seeking any bridge that remained. The pattern repeated at every creek and every stream. His tanks were forced into long and fuel-heavy detours. By evening, he had traveled 100 long kilometers. But he was no closer to the Meuse River. The gauges on the Tiger tanks clicked to empty. The engines coughed, sputtered, and finally went silent. The greatest offensive died from a lack of gasoline. The King Tigers were abandoned on the frozen roads. The quiet clicking of empty gauges ended the war.